Welcome to the Ministry of Defense of Portugal. My name is Francisco Proença Garcia. I'm the Dean at the Institute for Political Studies here in Lisbon, and it is a pleasure to host a series of conversations with Portuguese seniors and high-level officials with a large experience of work within the UN, held in the context of Portugal candidature to the UN Security Council. Together, we will discuss the main pillars of Portuguese foreign policy, multilateralism and the United Nations, and explore the ideas and priorities that would guide Portugal's contribution to the work of the Security Council in the current international context. Today, I have with me General Nuno Lemos Pires. He is the Defense Policy Director General at the Ministry of Defense. He holds a PhD in History, Defense and International Relations. Thank you so much to be with us. Nuno, you have an amazing CV and an outstanding international experience. You've been an intel officer at the NATO Rapid Deployable Corps in Spain, military assistant to the commander of NATO Joint Command Lisbon. You have been deputy commander of our military academy, defense policy deputy director general at the Ministry of Defense, commander of the European Union training mission in Mozambique. During your assignments, you participated in missions in Mozambique, Angola, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. So a huge experience. Let us now focus on our interview. So Portugal is now running to be a member of the Security Council. So as Portugal has consistently emphasized the importance of acting early, how can the Security Council strengthen its capacity to prevent conflicts rather than responding only after violence has escalated?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Let's start by the end. How can we prevent things that don't go in disaster or in catastrophe? And the United Nations has a charter that has been approved by the whole world. And we are talking about a situation where we can really predict and prevent conflicts just because we talk about it, we negotiate about it, and then we do something about it before it happens. And prevention is all about looking at the people, being there, and that's why United Nations must have delegations around the world. We must be there before the conflicts happened. We have to have the ability to talk, to negotiate, to prevent, to anticipate whatever is going to cause. And that is one of the real good things that the United Nations have been doing in the last 8 decades. And we can do more on that.
Okay, looking back at your time commanding international missions, what has stayed with you that most when it comes to responsibility for people's lives on the ground and for political decisions taken from the field?
Well, I think one of the most important lessons learned that I always learned during my life and my experience in the field is, first, when you arrive, when you go to a very complicated area in the world, you have to listen. You have to sit down and listen to the local people. You have to stay. You have to try to live among them. You have to relate with them. And then you have to adjust your plan accordingly. There are no one solutions that fits all. So when we go, we have to, first of all, you have to empty your mind. With your mandate, adjust to the local needs of the people and see what you can do in the very, very different circumstances. It's not the same to be in Asia, to be in Africa, to be in one part of Africa or others. Sometimes things vary, and you have to be very adaptive. The second thing is, you really have to look at in a holistic approach. You cannot just go there just to deliver security, but you cannot only do development. So you really have to merge the two of them. You have to watch out how can you put safety with development with human rights. And in the end, it's all about looking at all the people there, women, children, elderly, everyone that is in front of you that you have to protect. They are all equal in the law, in the eyes of the law. So you have to do the difference.
Okay. Portugal has a huge experience. A long history. We have had many UN missions. I remember participating in Mozambique, in Angola, East Timor, even former Yugoslavia. How have all this experience shaped Portugal's understanding of what it takes to build sustainable peace over time?
Well, I think one of the things that we have been doing is, of course, we trust a lot in a way of each soldier has their own action. So we don't act completely centralized because we like to believe that our soldiers can act individually. And that has been one of our trending marks. Our soldiers go among the population, again, living with them, suffering with them, handing hands with them, but at the same time, when it's needed, implying the force if you have to. So you have to be looked in the eyes of the populations that you know how to use a weapon if you need so, but when you don't need to, you are there to listen to them and help them. And so one of the lessons learned is exactly that one, is how can I be among the population and be of service with all of them. But also, there is another trending mark. If you talk about successful missions like in Mozambique, Mozambique was a very successful mission. And Portugal not only had a very crucial role on what we are doing in communications, in C2, etc., but also because we merged it with bilateral cooperation. So whenever you can do both, and we had the same situation in East Timor, for instance, it was a very successful mission, but before that and after that, bilaterally we also engaged, and multilaterally we engage as well. So there is a coordination among agencies. United Nations is not supposed to act completely alone. United Nations should, and usually they do, with other agencies in the world, especially with the European Union, with each of the countries that have more relations, and that happened in Mozambique with a very successful way. Before the United Nations was there, it was already a beginning of some bilateral cooperation like countries like Portugal, and then afterwards, countries like Portugal continue doing bilateral cooperation. And that is very important to have also trending marks. So we are not there just to go in and out, no. Usually Portugal's troops, they go, they stay, and then after that, even when the mission's finished, we still go there in a bilateral way because we have trust.
Okay, good. Taking your words about this management of consent with the local population, but now Portugal is a candidate for a non-permanent seat at UN Secretary Council for a mandate 27-28. What does Portugal hope to contribute by being present at the Secretary Council table during this period?
Well, Portugal has been, let me use two words, credible, reliable. Credible because our troops are really good. And why are they good? First of all, because when we go to the terrain, we can act in a decisive way when needed, but at the same time, after getting the security you need, we are there for development and human rights. We are a strong believer that we really have a voice, and Portuguese people has a voice that means a lot to the world because we have credibility. During and since the beginning of our participation in the United Nations missions, we have been successful because we are credible. When we need to use the force, we use the force with no caveats. We go to the worst places in the world, we act, we obey the orders to the strategic commanders, but immediately after we establish the security on the ground, the thing we do is sit down with the local people and we say, how can we help now to make economy work, to put the kids back on school? How can we help developing this part where you need a well to get water, and let's do it with another United Nations agencies. It's not only about blue helmets. But the second word is not credibility, but is reliable. Reliable is when you go for a mandate and you don't live at the middle of it. And Portugal has a tradition, and it's a very old tradition. When we go in, we will only leave when the last leave, because that's what was asked for us. So we complete the mandates, and usually we are there shoulder to shoulder when what the time needs. So we cannot go just for surgical movements. Peace, security, development, human rights take time. And we as a nation usually take the time it is needed to be on the ground as long as we should be. And there has been a very quite good balance that we have been doing around during this year. So to be credible, to be reliable, in the end people know the Portuguese troops are coming, they will stay. They won't leave. They will listen. They want to help. And that makes a big difference.
Good principles for the action of Portugal in the UN environment. But UN peacekeeping missions today operate in a far more complex and volatile environment than in the past. What responsibilities does this place on the Security Council when mandates are designed or renewed?
Well, the problem is always, of course, that we cannot change the world just because you have a situation. And United Nations missions are with a clear mandate for that situation specifically. And sometimes we want to see the world solved, at the same time we are trying to solve one precise conflict. So each situation has to be dealt in that specific area. We cannot have the ambition to change the world just because there is something happening there. And we have to put all of our efforts in that specific area. So if you are in Congo, you are in Congo. If you are in Colombia, you are in Colombia. If you are in Central African Republic, you are in Central African Republic. Different situations, different circumstances. It's not about the United Security Council working or not. It's not about the security, the permanent members being in agreement or not. It's after the decision, what can you do with your mandate you have, and you have to do the best. And sometimes we focus too much on what is happening around us, and we don't focus so much on what is happening in the ground. And in the ground, small changes, step by step, doing the right approach, and engaging to other agencies and people and local governments in the region, so we can feel that if we leave, if we are forced to leave because there goes the money, there goes the mandate, there is no other nations that are going to contribute, if we leave, United Nations should consider how can we engage with other agencies that can, or other people or other organizations that can replace us.
You show us the example of Central African Republic. We had led that mission for several terms with Portuguese generals. What are the main lessons learned that we can draw from that experience? What principles should guide the Security Council when it is asked to act in a similarly fragile context?
And that is a very good example, Central African Republic. First of all, because we had a lot of examples in the recent years when the international community decided to leave. And when we decide to leave, they will stay, they will come. Who are they? Terrorists. Other interests from nations, powerful nations that are not there for the help of the humanity. And so, it happened in Mali. We left. United Nations left, European Union left, everybody left, and then it's a disaster. Burkina Faso, Niger, and other places. So in Central African Republic, we, all the nations, the United Nations, the European Union and others, we decided to stay. And because we stayed, the jihadists are not there. Many of these opposing groups are more or less controlled, of course. Situation is not good on the ground, but it's much, much, much better because the United Nations are there if they were not. We are there to protect civilians. We are there to protect the people. And because we stayed, and Portugal led that example with two main differences. One, we engage with everyone. So every week we had a commander speaking with the European Union, other agencies, other peoples, every nation, including nations like Russia and China. We were there talking with everyone because that's the nature of the mission. You have to engage everyone. You have to get the goodwill together. But the second main reason that we have there, we gave the example by leading by example. Why? We had a quick reaction force led by 200 very operational soldiers, commandos or parachuters from the Portuguese army, that anytime it's needed, they will be deployed anywhere in Central African Republic. They would be very effective fighting, and they would be very effective after that engaging with the local population. And that makes the difference.
Very interesting. But now, talking about a country like Central Africa, I would like to move to a different perspective. And how can the Security Council better integrate, in your opinion, the security and development nexus in the decision-making process?
It is fundamental, and that makes all the difference. And United Nations and other agencies around the world, we have to develop from this concept. There is no development without security. There is no security without development. And development security without human rights is completely, it's like an orphan of a system. So you need to make sure that when you act in a certain area, you go there, you protect the people, and then you develop the conditions for the people to live there. You are only satisfied if after a small operation you can transform it into a very big and last operation that put, again, children back to school, hospitals running again, local governments will be established, open commerce, villages, everything has to work. But again, you need security, you need development, and then you need human rights. You must see if young girls are really treated fairly, if you have women, peace and security working together, because all of this is interlinked, and that is a very good example. If I may add this. One thing that we are all strong believers is in women, peace and security. And why is that? Because for the case of Portugal, we try to put a big numbers of women in our missions. We try to give it the best numbers we can, because it has a triple effect. When they are there, it means that we'll have more women coming to the armed forces, because they're going to be very useful on the ground. The second effect is, on the ground, they engage with the local women. And sometimes local women only talk to another women. But there is the third triple effect, is when you are there, other forces and other women from the armed forces, security forces, they see that women can lead, that women can organize, that women can do the difference, and this makes a huge difference on the ground. So leading by example, like we have done, this is what the kind of things that can change the environment.
I have many questions to ask you, mainly about the experience, our experience in so many missions, but we are reaching the end. So I have one last question for you. If Portugal is elected for the 27-28 mandate, what would success look like? Not for Portugal alone, but for the international community as a whole.
Well, Portugal is a nation that bridges relations around the world. We have the beautiful language of Portuguese that goes from Brazil to Japan or China, Macau or East Timor. It means that we have a tradition of engaging with the other cultures, and that's what we do best, is we don't have prescriptive solutions. We go to places and we listen first. We engage. We know how to deal with changes. We know how to adapt ourselves, and that's what we can bring to the United Nations Security Council. We can bring experience in bridging the relations, and we can make an example on the ground, because we are good making the negotiations, but we are also on the ground being among the population. We are not afraid of sleeping out on the field with the local population that needs. We have demonstrated that, and that's what we want. This is the spirit. Engage, listen, act, and change. There is no problem about bringing new solutions to the previous solutions that were not working. If a solution is not being the right one for the problem, we can change it completely.
No. Thank you for having us and for our amazing interview. I learned a lot, and I hope our position and our interview can make the difference when we advertise the Portuguese position to the world and gain their respect and their vote to us as a future member of the UN Security Council. Thank you, Nuno.
Thank you so much.